Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, bringing you worldwide experts from all areas of health and fitness. We cover training, nutrition, coaching, and mindset. Welcome your host, strength and conditioning coach, 2012 and 2013 CrossFit Games champ, Michael Cazayoux. Mind, body, brute.
Hello and welcome back. This is Michael Cazayoux and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. Today, I've got my wife, Adee Cazayoux, back on the show, and we're talking about relationships again. The most popular episode I think we've ever done together was called something like 9 tips to improving your relationship. It was just 9 random tips that we had picked up along the way that have worked for us. And today, we've got 6 more for you. So we've got 6 things that we use to navigate through conflict, to have a better sex life, and just 6 ways to have a better relationship in general. So without further ado, please help me welcome my wife, Adee Cazayoux. And I'm back with my beautiful wife, Adee. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me again.
Guys, today we're going to talk about relationships again. We've done maybe 3 or 4 podcasts on the Brute Podcast about relationships. We've done 2 or 3 on the WAG Podcast. And if you haven't listened to that yet, please go and do so. We're having a ton of fun over there. We actually just did an episode just on sex. It is episode 17. It's called, I think it starts like the title is something like "Let's Talk About Sex," and it was fire. So if you love listening to us talk about relationships and sex, go check that one out. We're gonna mention some of the stuff we talked about on that episode here today. But today, actually, let me back up even further. The most popular one I think we've ever done together was called nine tips to having a better relationship.
Yeah.
We just shared 9 of the things that we've learned from mentors and books and our personal experience that have really worked for us, and people ate it up. So today we just have 6 more kind of random things that we threw together that we wanted to share that have been working for us.
The 9 were pretty random too. So it was just like the 9, like if I was like, okay, we have to give tips for people to have a successful relationship, we just started listing them off. These are 6 new ones that weren't on that list. I think every once in a while we should just come on the podcast and give people the new tips and strategies that we've implemented in our life.
6 things to improve your relationship, guys. Number 1, regulate yourself. So what does that even mean? What does regulating yourself mean? Regulating yourself means regulating your nervous system. So when we are regulated, we are in a parasympathetic state. We are relaxed. We are calm. We can respond to external circumstances and people without reacting to them. When we are not regulated, we are reactive, we are stressed out, it's much easier for us to get angry and to take things personally and to read into things. That is not regulating yourself.
Yeah, and you can really feel the difference. So feeling the difference would be like a non-regulated state would be tension in your body. You maybe squeeze your fists, or you start speaking louder. You want to yell. You want to be spiteful, or you want to hurt people, or you're like really tense. Whereas when you are regulated, you might move slower. You are more relaxed in your body. You can think more instead of like you're feeling so much. You have more space.
So one really, really big thing that both of us have been working on individually and interpersonally has been regulating ourselves in conflicts, right? When we have, when we're arguing, when we're fighting, when we're just going through something tough, rather than just continuing, like all we're focusing on is trying to get the other person to see our point of view. We've been focusing on regulating our own nervous system. And really all that looks like is trying to stay present trying to stay present. And what that looks like is, for me, kind of tuning into my breath for a second and tuning into, like, if you've done any meditation or yoga, you'll probably relate to this. When you get really present, you can like see your thoughts and emotions. You can like notice them rather than just being swept away by your thoughts and emotions, right? You're actually able to see what's going on in your head and notice that everything you're thinking might not be true, right? And it allows you to suspend belief and to see the other person's perspective, which is ultimately what helps people get through conflict, is seeing the other person's perspective and acknowledging it.
Yeah. Seeing the other person's perspective and possibly seeing where you are accountable in that situation. So seeing where you're responsible, and taking you out of the I'm right, you're wrong, I'm winning, I want to win, that type of thing that can help conflict last forever.
You've had like such a huge transformation in this area. How do you think what are the things that you're doing outside of us being in arguments that are making it, giving you the ability to actually regulate yourself?
Well, first, I had this realization of how much this shows up in my life. And that was through soliciting feedback through many different people in my life. So soliciting feedback from our staff at work, people that work with me on a regular basis. One of the biggest piece of feedbacks from them was that sometimes it's hard to bring something to me because you don't know how I'm going to react in terms of get really emotional or defensive or be short. And that's not a good feeling. And I don't want to treat people that way. And so getting that feedback, although was painful and really difficult to hear, it was essential for me to become the type of person that I actually want to be. So that was like the first step of like realizing how much I wanted to work on this, because I don't want to be the kind of person that something happens that's uncomfortable or challenging or difficult and immediately I shut other people down or I treat them poorly or I can't control myself. And then once I realized that, I started noticing, like you talk about, I started noticing when I was completely not in control of myself. I've been literally in a situation where I am acting in a way that I don't want to be acting and I cannot stop myself. Like like
you're being like really defensive or argumentative, and you can see that happening.
Yes. And I can't stop myself. It's like being in the tub of Ben and Jerry's and you're just like, you can't stop eating it. So I think that was like the next step of like seeing that happening. And I went to really work on how do I get present? How do I get regulated enough to be able to take a different action? And I knew that was the answer, or at least one of the solutions for me. One thing that, meditation has really helped forever. I've been on and off meditating since we met, but I think since Burning Man. So since last summer, which was almost a year ago, I've been consistently every single day. So it's like a year of every single day, 10 minutes at least minimum, sometimes 20 minutes, and sometimes multiple times a day of just sitting in silence, breathing, listening to somebody on a guided meditation, or just becoming aware of the thoughts that are coming up in my mind. And then also, I think the biggest impact has been journaling. So I journal in the morning and I'll fill 3 pages with thoughts, and it's just free flowing thoughts. And I didn't realize how like potent of an exercise that was for me. There's a difference between like sitting in meditation, I can see my thoughts, versus like seeing them written in paper, because I can read them again. Once I'm in meditation, like they're gone, like the thoughts are gone. I don't have them anymore. When they're in my journal, they're like in there on paper and I can see them in front of me. And I can also notice consistently the same thoughts coming up over and over again. And it's helping me realize that it's helping me see from a different perspective that this is something I want to work through, versus just like feeling tension in that area and not knowing where it's coming from. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, another one that it definitely does. Another one that you didn't mention that I think it has impacted you is having more space. Like literally having less commitments on your calendar, I think has made a huge difference. I think you're one of the most driven, ambitious women I've ever met. And so you just have all of, like, when we met, you just have every minute of every day, you're doing something to grow the business or grow personally. And that served you in so many ways, but it doesn't allow you the time to decompress. And so you've given yourself so much more space to be creative, to do art, to hang out with friends. And it's led to you showing up as just an enormously calmer individual.
Yeah, totally.
One thing that I've found extremely useful is taking space in the middle of some of these arguments. So we'll be taking a pause or like a timeout, right? We'll get in an argument, and I'll recognize that I'm not regulated. Like I'm at a 7 or an 8 out of 10, frustrated or angry or defensive or whatever it is, afraid. And I will, like, just the other day we walked out of the apartment that we're staying in, and we got in a little fight, and I ended up going on a walk around the block. And sometimes in the past, if I would do that, I would spend that time caught up in my head, creating more stories, creating even stronger emotions about how much of a bitch you are, right? Oh my God. And just like making you out to be this terrible person. And now I'm using it to just to let the story go for a little bit. And what happens is by the time we come back together, thoughts
You're
are still going. I'm under 5, and I'm like a much more reasonable person. I'm interested in hearing your perspective because you and I are committed to finding solutions rather than making each other wrong. And so yeah, the taking a pause, taking a time out has been extremely helpful. And for you, letting me do that sometimes, not even encouraging it sometimes.
Yeah, I think having a regulation conversation in your relationship is really, really valuable, and having that as a card that either person can play. So you can be like, hey, can we take a pause right now and just like regulate ourselves in the middle of a conflict? And I know that that's a valuable thing to do, because at the end of that, I know you're committed to coming back and actually resolving it, and you're going to come back better and more open and in a place that's more likely for us to actually reach a conclusion. So the regulation in relationships, I think, is so, so incredibly important. And it's helped us so much. Like, I think in that same day where we had that argument, we were having like the same argument. And I notice that if I don't regulate myself, I stay in the what you're talking about, like the making you wrong, and like how am I right and how am I justified, and how should Michael have to apologize for whatever he's doing, and like how can I formulate the argument in a way that like it makes it clear that he should apologize. And that's what I'm looking for. Like, what are the words that I can use that will convince Michael that he has something he has to apologize for me for? And I am willing to bet most times when you're in conflict with your relationship, it's not actually about the thing that you're fighting about. And if you're regulated enough, you're open to seeing where it's actually coming from. And it could be like this thing that happened a couple days ago that this moment pushed it over the edge and made you guys fight about it. Or it could be that maybe there's something like an underlying way or habit that somebody has that they're not noticing. Or it could be something far beyond what you're actually like. Usually it's something petty. Like you said something weird, or you weren't listening to me, or you didn't take out the trash. Like something, I ask you all the time to take out the trash, and that's disrespectful. And that's not what you're actually fighting about. And when you use the regulation, it opens up the ability to be like, what are we actually fighting about here? Instead of just getting so attached to this one particular fight, because ultimately it's not about the fight, it's about the relationship as a whole. And I think that's like a Jedi trick.
And regulation does not happen by thinking. It happens by tuning into, like, becoming present, by using the breath or tuning into physical sensations. one thing that we've tried is taking 10 deep breaths where the exhale takes twice as long as the inhale. Another one that we've been told to do, but I don't know, I've used it probably a couple times, is imagining like a white ball of light traveling from the center of your navel very slowly all the way up to your forehead and back down, and trying to focus on that as it travels up and down. It's just like meditative techniques, basically.
And I think another one, like when you were going on that walk around the block, something that you could have done was, instead of being lost in the story in your head and formulating the arguments, pay attention to the environment that you're around. Like, what color are the trees? What color are the leaves? What sounds are you hearing? Where are you? What time of day is it? Like, or not the thoughts, like, is the sun out? How bright is the sky? Like, pay attention to your environment, and that all of a sudden like takes you out of the thoughts and into the present environment that you're in, and that gives you some space from that momentum.
So number 1, regulate yourself. Number 2, one of the biggest issues Adee and I had in our relationship in the beginning was we're both business owners and we live in the 21st century. And so we had our phones on us constantly and we were just on them all the time.
Yeah, more than you.
We were really big into social media at the time. We had tons of emails to respond to at all times of day because we're, running our businesses. And this caused a lot of friction because in a relationship, you have to be present with the other people, right? You want to show them that you're actually listening to you. You want to show them that you're actually listening to them, right? When you're hanging out with someone at a dinner table, you don't want them constantly looking down at their phone and feeling like they wish they were somewhere else, right? So we've gone through a huge evolution in this area over the past several years, and we've grown so much. And one thing that I found extremely helpful recently is when we will leave the house, at different times, we will leave at least one, maybe both phones at home, right? If we need one phone for navigation, then we will bring one phone. But the opposite person, we've done this a few times on this trip that we're on right now. The opposite person, well, how do we put this?
Yeah, like I'll hold Michael's phone.
Yes,
so that because I'm holding Michael's phone, I'm not as triggered by the notifications that he's getting. So he doesn't see them and is not thinking about them, or like, what does that person say? He doesn't even know what types of messages he got. And then Michael will use my phone for navigation, so I don't see those notifications.
And I can hear people, I can imagine people listening thinking how silly this may seem, but if you've ever been in a conversation with someone and they look down at their phone and you feel like they wish they were someone else, were somewhere else, then you can probably relate to this. We're just in a day and age where people are so distracted, and it's just become normal to constantly be looking down at your phone and being distracted from one another, and it doesn't feel good. I think
it's also far beyond just we're at the table, we're eating dinner together, and I'm looking at my phone. You go to the bathroom, let's say while you're in the bathroom, I check my phone. I see something that's work related, and then I'm not present anymore. I'm checked out. And then I'm thinking about that when I get back to conversation with you, and that's not fair. And it's just this residue of like, I'm still connected to whatever I just saw on my phone, or like maybe I saw something on social media, or maybe whatever it was, it's a distraction from keeping our relationship important and sacred, and not letting something take me away. And my phone can definitely take me away from our relationship. It can pull me into work. It can pull me into like, maybe a friend sent me a message and like they're going through something and they'll send me a text. And if I read it in that moment, I'm thinking about that and I want to be there for them, but it can wait until the morning, So we also don't have kids. So that's a huge thing. I think being a mother, I would probably want to check to see if my kids called me, but or they texted me, but I think that's probably the only exception to the rule that I would have.
So put your phones away, leave them at home, give it to your partner, do whatever you can to create boundaries around technology, because it will only lead to better relationships, whether that be friends or partnerships. Number 3, have novel experiences together. So when you first meet someone, every experience is novel, right? And you're also in this state where you're trying to like impress and court each other. And so you're really going out of your way to have adventures and to have a great time. But over time, you get to know each other, you move in together, you get comfortable, you get married, and you might not feel like you have to work as hard. And so people just get into routine. They, every night is Netflix and chill, or watching a movie together, or going to the same restaurant that you always go to, which all of those things can be nice. But all of us crave novelty and adventure and excitement. And one of a psychologist that Adee and I look up to, named Esther Perel, talks about the divorce rate in the West, maybe the whole world. And she says that actually people are more in love than they've ever been, but their sex lives are worse than they've ever been. And Adee and I have talked about this on multiple podcasts. But just to reiterate, sex and connection, or sex and love, are sort of on opposite
ends
poles,
of the spectrum.
Opposite
it's
ends
like
of the spectrum.
Love and eroticism. So what is erotic and exciting and makes you lust for somebody and want to have sex with them can actually be the opposite of what makes you feel secure and loved and connected to somebody. So you also feel love, security, and connection with your family members, right? So your mother makes you feel, well, you'd hope makes you feel love and supported and connected and safe and secure. And you want that from your intimate partnership too, but that can sometimes make it feel like you don't want to have sex with them because they've all of a sudden become like family, and it's instinctual not to want to have sex with your family. So the novelty breeds more of eroticism, and it makes things sexy and exciting and uncertain. Like, what is this experience going to be? Like, where's he going to take me? And it also makes you feel thought about in a different way than just the typical standard, right? Something. So you make me coffee every morning, and that is so sweet. And I love that you do that for me. Eventually, it's like Michael just makes me coffee every morning. It's not as sweet. Yeah, you take it a little bit for granted, and it's just not as novel anymore. It's almost like if you don't make me coffee, it's like, what the hell? Like, where's my coffee? Right. So having novel experiences with each other and courting each other, and at the beginning of your relationship, you like leave notes for each other. You even just like a text message randomly in the middle of a day when you're at work and that person's not expecting a message, just saying something, like, I
can't wait to bend you over the bed later tonight.
I mean, if that's what you want to say, that's what you want to say. And if that's like what you think the other person would like, then go for it. say stuff like that. Or like, you looked so sexy last night, or like whatever it is. But just keeping things like novel and fun and unexpected is a great thing to have in your relationship, for sure.
Yeah, on the sex podcast that we did on the WAG podcast, one of the things we talked about was kind of hacking date night. Like, I think a lot of people do date night very well intentioned, but they never go out of their comfort zone, really. And I think we can do a lot better, right? I think we can be more creative and get a lot more out of like the ritual date night. And we do that by you and I have done that by surprising each other, right? Like planning an entire surprise night for each other. Another way that we do that is kind of dressing a little more in a more expressive way than we usually would. Totally. The last time we did it, you wore a wig, which was so exciting.
So fun. Or you will go and get like a new outfit, and you've loved that too. Or just you wear a hat, like just something a little bit different. I mean, it might seem silly, but what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
You know, it's not going to hurt anybody. So it's fun, it's different, and that really does keep spice in your relationship.
So it can be hacking date night. It can be traveling to a new place together. It can be going on an adventure or some type of new experience wherever you live. We just did something called Eat With, which is kind of like Airbnb for chefs. Like a chef will have a meal at their house or someone else's house and invite or open up like 8 to 10 spots where you go and like meet new people. We've done this a couple times recently and
so good.
Met some amazing people, and we're just throwing out ideas of like exciting, adventurous things that you could do.
Like grab some food, create like a little meat and cheese board, and go to a park and sit on the grass and play some music and have a glass of wine or do whatever. Like there's so many. I'm sure you could do a quick Google search like fun date night and you'd come up with a million ideas.
So have novel experiences with each other, guys. Try to court and surprise each other.
Number 4, I recently read this book called Getting the Love You Want. And I read it because Oprah, who is like one of my idols, I love Oprah. And she said this is the best book on relationships she's ever read in her entire life. And I was like, if Oprah says that, I'm definitely reading this book. So I bought the book immediately, read it. It was honestly incredible. Incredibly eye-opening into how you choose your partner, why you choose them, why you have conflict, how to get through conflict. And it came with a whole bunch of different exercises that you can use in your relationship to strengthen it and make it more successful. I highly recommend the book. It's just...
So you like it? You liked it then?
Yeah. It was really amazing. I think you loved that I read the book too. Mm-hmm. There's this one thing that I've been using in our relationship, which is a type of dialogue to use when you're in conflict. So it's kind of like a step-by-step guide on like how to get through conflict or how to understand each other in conflict or work through difficult feelings or persistent complaints that you have in your relationship. And these are the 3 steps. The first step is mirror. The second step is validate. And the third step is empathize. So you would be the receiver in this scenario, and I'm the sender. So the sender is the person who has the issue and wants to express their feelings and their concerns. And so I would tell you what's going on for me. Mm-hmm. And then you would be the receiver. So the receiver has to first mirror. So I'm going to tell you everything that's going on in my head and how I'm feeling. And I'm going to try and do so like without blaming and try and do that in the most effective way possible. And you're going to mirror everything that I said to you, like literally repeat it. So if I say, it was really like, I am so upset that you didn't take out the trash this morning and that made me late for work and blah, 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 blah. And then you mirror that saying, so you're telling me that because I didn't take out the trash, you ended up being late for work and that was the X, Y, and Z. And you just literally repeat exactly what I said back to you so that I can know that you heard me. And that is like really a comforting thing in conflict. So the first step is mirror. And then the biggest piece of the mirroring section is when you're done mirroring for that person, you ask if there's any more. So you would repeat, so you're telling me I didn't take out the trash and then you were late for work and that made you really frustrated. Is there anything else? And then that person who's the sender is really taking it in and trying to find if there's anything else. Like, is there anything else that's also bothering me? And then if I do say there's anything else, you mirror that back to me so that you keep doing this mirroring and you keep asking if there's more and you keep doing that until that person's gotten all of their feelings out. And the receiver, who's you in this scenario, you don't add anything. All you're doing is mirroring my feelings. You're not defending yourself. You're not providing your side of the story. That's not happening in this section of the conversation. And then the next is that you're going to validate. So after you're like, is there any more? And I've said there's no more. You're going to validate my feelings. So from everything that I just said and what you mirrored, you're going to say what made sense to you. So it made sense that you were late for work and you were really frustrated, and like just validate like it makes sense to me that you felt that way, so that I don't feel like a crazy person. Like often you can be in an argument and it's like, I feel crazy because I don't feel like you understand how I feel. And then when you validate how I feel, it like kind of like chills you out a little bit. It's like, okay, at least I can like let go knowing that he understands. He doesn't have to agree, but at least you understand. So validating all my feelings. And then if there is anything that doesn't make sense to you, to ask for clarity on that. So you can say, this piece made sense. I totally get that. Can you explain more about this? Because I'm not really understanding. And then just to stay in open communication until you can reach a place where you can validate and say, okay, this all makes sense to me. And then the last piece is empathize. So if in the validation stage you haven't already done so, but to empathize with how that might make me feel. So I would imagine in your shoes that I would feel sad, hurt, whatever emotions, happy, excited, angry, whatever emotions that you imagine that I would feel, you say that to the person who's talking. So you say, just to empathize with how this might make them feel. And then that would be the end of like that particular section of the dialogue. And then you get the opportunity to explain your side, and then we switch positions. So then you tell me what's going on for you or what's come up for you, and then I mirror.
Same steps.
Yeah. Same steps.
Well, one thing I want to jump in and highlight, I think in the empathize step, it's important that you don't just rattle off what you like a sociopath can know the right things to say. They can know how people are feeling and say and use that step kind of as a tactic, but not really be in an empathetic state, right?
Yeah.
Empathizing means that you're actually feeling those feelings for and with someone, right? So I think
if you're not in the place where you're really trying to get through conflict and you're trying to be there and you're trying to hear them and you're really committed to these steps, then you're not going to get through the conflict. It's just providing you a framework to help get through conflict so that you have things to say to each other and you have a safe way to go from step to step to step instead of just like yelling at each other and trying to be right.
I think in our best state, like when we're best at getting through conflict, we're doing some of this sort of intuitively and through experience. But you used this the other day in one of our fights, and I knew you were doing it, and it was so effective. I almost laughed. I was so pissed at you, but it was so effective. Like the mirroring and validation that you used, I almost laughed. I was like, holy shit, I know she's doing it to me.
A lot of conflict comes from being misunderstood. Right? There's a misunderstanding. I'm laughing because we just got into a fight about misunderstanding.
Misheard.
But a lot of it comes from I'm speaking and I'm saying how I feel and you think I'm saying something completely different. So that mirroring step allows me to correct you. So you could say, are you saying that you are sad about me not taking out the trash? And I could be like, no, I'm not sad about it. I'm angry about it. And I can correct you if you misunderstood what it was that I was trying to say, so we can get on the same page, so we can understand each other where we're both coming from. And that mirroring step, I think, is so vital. And also that is there more, so that you can get all of it out in this conversation instead of having anything lingering at the end of it that is going to ignite this whole thing all over again. I love just having the steps, and of course validating, like it makes sense to me that this happened. It makes sense to me that you got frustrated. I understand that I would also feel angry if I was you in that situation. And it allows for the resolution to come from a place where we're on steady ground instead of you thinking I mean something different, you know?
So if you want more info on that, you can just Google IMAGO dialogue technique. IMAGO. Number 5, have better sex more often.
and treat sex like exercise occasionally. So we've in the past, we just did like that episode on sex and the WAG podcast came at a time where Michael and I have been together for 4 years. And I think in the past, like we've been really lucky. We love having sex and we are very attracted to each other and we have great sex. So we've been lucky in that way. But in like the past 6 months, maybe we've been having less than we want. And it's been an open and active discussion in our relationship on like, why is that happening? How do we get over that? And I think that like exercise, sometimes you don't want to exercise. And sometimes you're just like not into it. And then the workout, you're in the workout and it feels good, and then the workout's over and you don't regret it. Sex is just like that sometimes. And sometimes the instruction that we got, or instruction, strategy, feedback, advice that we got from our relationship coach was sometimes it's not about you and it's not about Michael. Like it's not about me and it's not about Michael. It's about our relationship, and your relationship needs to have sex. So having the reframe of, okay, maybe I'm not in the mood right now. Maybe I'm stressed, or maybe I don't feel like it, but our relationship needs to have sex right now. Mm-hmm. So we need to have sex, and we need to just do it even though we don't want to. And 5 minutes later, we're going to be into it. Mm-hmm. Like it almost never fails. There's almost never a time where we're like, we're going to have sex right now. And it feels like a little bit for the first like 2 minutes. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, I do want to have sex. This is so great. Right. And then immediately after, our relationship is so grateful for the fact that we did have sex.
And both of us individually. Right?
Yes, exactly.
I think the only time when that doesn't work out well is when either one or both of us treat it as like, okay, obviously we're not like so horny for each other right now, but we know we need to have sex, and we sort of like rush it. Mm-hmm. Right. I think you have to on one hand treat it like exercise sometimes, and kind of go into it without being like so super turned on, while also flirting and being seductive and like actually putting some energy and intention into it, rather than just like, hey, let's meet in the bedroom and take our clothes off. Right.
For sure.
You actually have to try still.
Yeah. And I think there's also something that we learned too about sex, of saying yes and saying no. So when one person tries to seduce the other person, that is a really vulnerable thing to do. So saying no in that scenario is something that you should consider. It's something that you shouldn't take lightly, and it shouldn't just be like, oh, like, not right now, like I've got this much to do, and like blah blah blah. That no over time can actually cause damage. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important to remember. And so one, I think people should just say yes more often, even when they want to say no. So I think that you should probably lean towards like 75% of the time say yes, even when you want to say no. And then 25% of the time, when it makes sense to say no, just say no.
Right.
Like for me,
given that like you're a healthy individual, you don't have some kind of, I don't know, traumatic issue with sex, right. Obviously.
Yes. For the average person. And it's kind of like me, like if I just did my face of makeup and my hair and I'm in an outfit and that's when you decide to have sex, I'm saying no. I'm just like,
well, if you're wearing a short dress, who knows?
But, so I just think that is important. And then we have one tactical strategy that was given to us, which was the 1 to 10 rule, which we use for like a lot of things. But asking or telling your partner from 1 to 10, how horny are you, or how much do you want to have sex? If your partner says that they're over 5, like I am like 7 out of 10 want to have sex right now, or like our relationship needs to have sex 7 out of 10 right now, don't say no. Mm-hmm. Like then it's, and the person cannot use that as a weapon against their partner. Be genuinely serious about it. And in that scenario, I think it's useful to be like, really understand how bad the other person wants it, or how much damage it would cause if you said no. Mm-hmm. Because if someone really wanted it and they got rejected, that can be painful.
Mm-hmm. And just as a little side note, one thing that's also been really useful is if you're the person approaching your partner for sex, one thing that both of us have been trying to do is before we do that, kind of making ourselves okay with a no before we even approach them. Because if we just go to it expecting them to say yes, then we can be hurt by it. We can be really disappointed, and that can, have negative consequences. So if I'm walking over to Adee, I'm mentally preparing for a no, telling myself if she doesn't want to have sex, like at my best, this is what I'm doing. I don't do this every time, but if she says no, she's not saying no to me. She just doesn't want to have sex right now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. One of the things that she talked about was to like challenge yourself to maybe like every day for 10 days, ask your partner to have sex, and they're likely to say no a number of times. Then eventually you'll just get used to it. You'll be a little bit more numbed. I haven't done that, but maybe it's something that I should do.
So have better sex more often. Number 6.
Number 6 is when you are in a relationship and maybe there's something that your partner is doing that you don't necessarily like, or you would appreciate if they improved or noticed. There's something that we do is that we use praise as a method to like kind of train your partner. I hate saying like train your partner like a dog, but
I like being a dog.
But it really does work that way. So everybody wants to be loved and appreciated and noticed by their partner, right? So if you praise me for anything, I'm going to pay attention to it, and I'm going to try and do more of that because I want more praise. I want more appreciation. I want more acknowledgement. So therefore, like if you tell me something's awesome that I do, I'm going to be like, oh, is it? Cool. And then it's like noted in my head, and I'm going to keep that in my mind. The thing with that, one of the tricks is that we've noticed is you could praise anything remotely close to what you're looking for. So one of the things in our relationship is you love when I give you space. You love when I not only just when I give you space, but you want a specific kind of space. You want space, guilt-free, knowing that I'm doing something and totally taken care of and actually having a good time. So knowing that I'm okay and having a good time helps you relax and actually enjoy the space that you get. And also you know that I'm not going to be upset that you took some time by yourself and didn't want to be with me, and I'm not going to take that personally. That's a lot. Like that's a lot to ask for. That's like a really complex situation. So at the beginning, when we first discovered that, or when I first discovered this and you first started noticing that that's something that you needed in our relationship, you would just praise me if I would give you even the smallest bit of space. Even if I, made dinner and then I ate dinner without you. Let's say I just ate a meal without you. You would be like, I really appreciate you letting me have that meal by myself. And it wasn't exactly what you were looking for, but it was even a little bit close. So that gave me the little boost of praise and acknowledgement that I needed to keep trying. And noticing that I was doing something that was good for the relationship.
Yeah. Most often we try to, train our partners with bitching and complaining, right, about what we don't like. And for some people that works, but only to a certain extent. And it's just like a dog, right? It's just like spanking the dog is not going to work nearly as much as praising the dog for doing, praising them for doing what you want.
The dog training philosophy around that is if you hit your dog to do something, like, and you train them with fear and punishment, they're going to fear you versus respect you. And you want your dog to do what you're asking them to do because they respect you and they want to choose that for themselves because they want to like be a good dog. He wants to be a good dog. And not just because they're afraid of you. And same with relationships. I don't want to do the things that you want me to do because I'm afraid of you. I want to respect you and our relationship. And
when you bitch and complain, it actually can give the other person more fuel to just be caught up in what they don't. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Or, he's being an asshole, blah, 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 rather than feeling proud of the progress that you're making and wanting to do more of it for your partner.
Yeah. And it's It's ultimately me giving you space is not just for you, and it's also for me. It's helping me be more of the kind of person I want to be, because I get to be more independent and I get to have more of my own personal space, and I get to cultivate pieces of myself that I wouldn't have otherwise. And I think if you bitched and complained about it, I would just think I was doing it for you, and it would take away from the whole lesson. I think that in most relationships, when in a successful relationship, when you're wanting me to change something about myself or to improve or to grow in a specific way, it is for my benefit. You see a better version of me that I don't see right now, and you're helping me push me in that direction. And me doing that is ultimately good for me, but I can't see it in the moment because it's uncomfortable to change and grow. So doing that in a way that helps your partner softly do that is for the benefit of both people. So I think from the perspective of the person who's making the change, know that, you know, them praising you for those things is you want to be more that way. So
it doesn't matter how big or small the thing is that you're, you know, hoping your partner grows into or changes about themselves. Just search for all of the little ways to praise them.
Yes.
It is so effective.
I love praise. I'm like a praise junkie.
Fiend.
I'm a praise junkie. I want praise constantly.
All right. We did it again. Thanks, Adee. Let's see. We got 1, regulate yourself. Specifically, regulate your nervous system in conflict. Number 2, leave your phone at home or create boundaries around your use of technology, and especially your phone, when hanging out with people, especially your partner. Number 3, have novel experiences together, court each other, surprise each other, do new things together. This is what keeps relationships feeling alive and sexy. Number 4, use the IMAGO dialogue technique, which is mirror, validate, and empathize. And we highly recommend Googling it or reading Getting the Love You Want by Harville, Hendrix?
Hendrix, yeah.
Hendrix. Number 5 is have better sex and more often. And sometimes you might just have to shift your perspective into thinking about it like exercise. We don't always want to exercise, but we do because we know it's good for us. And sex is the exact same way. Number 6, train your partner like a dog.
Oh my gosh.
That's going to be a rap song.
Praise the shit out of them.
All right, Adee. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
This episode is finished, but your training journey continues. Head over to brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW and grab your free pack of 32 accessory workouts that you can incorporate into your training and start improving your strength immediately. That's brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW.